drive our overall economic vision. The power sector reform is at the heart of our industrialization. I call on all stakeholders to cooperate with my administration to ensure the success of the reforms.
For many years, when the military were in power, there was almost no funding for the sector.
There was no discipline, there was no coordination, there was no monitoring.
No country in this age, in this century, can live in darkness and think about progress.
A lot of our industries have moved to neighboring countries. Many of them have gone off to Ghana, to Benin Republic, and that is terrible for Nigeria.
Investors understand that with the demand we have in this country for energy, at the gap between demand and supply, that this could be called the new market for energy.
If people look at what MTN has done with telecoms, they can see the opportunities there are in the power sector. An opportunity to make a lot of money, but also an opportunity to contribute to the transformation of a society and the creation of jobs. And so the message is that Nigeria is open for business.
For as long as most people can remember, Nigeria has had constant power disruptions.
The original state power company, known as the National Electric Power Authority, was immortalized by Fela Kuta's drummer, Tony Allen, who actually wrote a song using the acronym NEPA, Never Expect Power Always. And it became a sort of a national joke. And that was back in the 70s. And really since then, the situation has continued to deteriorate.
The inefficiency of the past 40 years has left the country teetering on the brink of an energy disaster.
The load kept growing. Transmission was not expanded. Similarly, distribution was just relying on the little amount from the then NEPA's IGR. So as a result, the sector became, the supply situation in the country became very, very erratic, inadequate.
For the administration of President Goodluck Jonathan, that's inherited decades of decay, overhauling, upgrading and reforming Nigeria's horrendously complicated electricity system has become the #1 priority.
For the president, it's the single item that he had picked out as something that he believes firmly that if you don't have significant improvement, then it will transfer to slowing down most of the other issues in the system.
Welcome to the afternoon session of the USAID-sponsored BPE Power Sector Reform Workshop.
In the last year, experts from around the world have converged on Nigeria, working with the government and setting out what's been described as a rational market-based system of power sector reforms.
We took the time to do study tours, looked at what was happening in the world. We got the best in terms of expertise and advice.
The roadmap that the government launched last year really covered all of those detailed issues very effectively, we think. And over the period since then, we have seen progress being made in all of the areas, both the larger areas, but also the technical details. So that all gives us much hope that this is going to be a successful process.
I think that what has really been a game changer during the last year is the focus from the current administration through the roadmap on implementation of those reform actions in an accelerated manner. And we are very supportive of that change.
With international endorsements coming from the likes of the World Bank and the British government, suddenly Nigeria's electricity crisis is turning into a unique business opportunity.
Nigeria is virgin territory. Okay, we have major challenges with infrastructure, but these challenges are indeed opportunities for potential business people. And with the very successful elections we've had, okay, I mean, which has restored some stability to our polity and really, sort of generated, even additional tremendous goodwill for Nigeria. I believe that is the right time to come in.
The reforms are offering both local and foreign investors a once-in-a-century chance to build a new power infrastructure that by all predictions will offer staggeringly high returns.
And I think that the efforts that are being made now are in the positive and correct direction for that. And it will achieve ultimately what the objective is to increase the economy, make it more vibrant, and supply and provide plenty of jobs in an open and free-based economy.
Observers say the roadmap for reforms is the best ever, and combined with strong political will and punctilious implementation, has the potential to permanently transform Nigeria.
It is not policy that is Nigeria's problem. It is not intention on the part of government that is Nigeria's problem. It is at the point of execution that we tend to stumble. And therefore, this time there will be no excuses for execution, not just from the perspective of the public sector, but also from the private sector as well.
For the Jonathan administration, reforming the power sector is not just about delivering light, although that's critical. It's about the opportunities it'll provide for the country's 150 million people.
I like the power reform process because it's one of those unique opportunities where private investors can come and satisfy their profit maximizing objective while actually doing something useful and contributing to society. Because power is what will change the lives of people.
But privatization has also opened up a host of nettlesome issues, not least the concerns of thousands of electricity sector workers.
Talking of some of these agreements, some of them salary increase, some issue like 56% salary increase by the federal government, issues like minimum wage, some of those issues came on board and you can't neglect them.
Concerns the government says it's determined to address.
Government will surely deliver on all the aspects of agreement that they will enter into with the union. And as now the government and the union have started negotiating. And it's a good faith negotiation.
My assessment is that the talks are going well because the talks were frank and based on two primordial objectives: the interests of Nigeria and Nigerians being put above any other interests.
Coming up in the next 60 minutes, we examine the challenge of developing a new, more sustainable electricity infrastructure for Nigeria after decades of crippling neglect. Is the much talked about roadmap for power sector reform the magic switch that will finally and permanently turn the lights on?
I will continue to fight for electricity to be available to all our citizens. You have trusted me with your mandate, and I will never, never let you down.
Very little thought was given to the future when the British colonial government built the first thermal station in the 1950s in southeastern Nigeria. After they left in 1960 and Nigerians began administering the country, more plants were built across the nation, and for a time, Nigerians enjoyed virtually uninterrupted supply. But within a decade, it soon became clear, even at that early stage, that demand for electricity was beginning to exceed supply. As Nigeria's economy and population grew, the demand for electricity rose dramatically by more than a dozen percentage points each year.
Well, in about 1972, the state put all the little power companies into a big state monopoly company which managed distribution, transmission and also generation. And none of these different entities were accountable to each other or to government. So you got a lot of corruption, and so gradually there was Nigeria's demand for electricity wasn't being met, and until during the military years in the 80s and 90s, you got power stagnating at around 2,000 megawatts for nearly 2 decades.
Successive military governments continued to ignore the sector, and capacity margins disappeared. It wasn't until the civilian government of President Obasanjo arrived in 1999 that attention was once again focused on the power sector. In 2005, President Obasanjo and his team finally came to grips with the scale of the problem. A new Power Reform Act was passed by Parliament, which paved the way for the establishment of a regulatory commission and the unbundling of the old Electricity Authority NEPA into generation, transmission and distribution companies in preparation for privatization. At the same time, Obasanjo launched the National Integrated Power Project, or NIPP, a showpiece electricity scheme that initiated the construction of around 11 new power stations and dozens of substations and transmission lines. But with a change of government in 2007, building work on the NIPP stalled. Under tremendous pressure from growing demand, existing generation, transmission and distribution networks became ever more unreliable. Today, more than 50 years after independence, Nigerians are still haunted by the spectre of regular power outages. Businesses like the Enugu-based Blue Island Hotel have come to depend on generators as their primary source of power.
Actually, it's a terrible thing, you know. We spend a whole lot of money buying diesel on a daily basis. You know, in fact, we're trying to break even. You know, we spend at least not less than 75 to 80,000 naira on a daily basis on diesel alone. Not to talk of servicing the generators.
Blue Island Hotel is not alone. Almost every business and home in cities across Nigeria has a generator on standby. They spring to life as soon as power goes off.
Most of these electronics we do service here. Big appliances, generator cannot be able to power them. So whenever we come across such electronics, we do stay till when electricity comes on, then we'll be able to do our job.
Small businesses, such as those in the printing industry, have been particularly hard hit by a lack of power and the high cost of running generators.
Sometimes they'll just give us maybe 2 hours or 3 hours light in a day. With our income here, what we are making, it's not maybe sometimes you budget 5,000 naira, they're only making maybe 10,000 naira.
But how much does the Nigerian public really understand electricity? Well, the truth is, most people in Nigeria and around the world have little understanding of what it takes to create electricity. All they know is they push a button and the light comes on. And when it doesn't, as one American electrical engineer put it, there's hell to pay.
Well, I don't know how easy it is for them, but I know if they can do that, only that one for us, as a citizen of this country, we are satisfied. We don't need any other thing.
There's electricity, there'll be job opportunity. Okay, here there's no electricity. We don't have city lights. Okay, in my school we don't have lights at all. When I'm at home, we don't have lights in my school.
Having inherited one of the worst electricity systems in the world, the immediate challenge for the new administration of President Jonathan was to stabilize and improve upon the existing power infrastructure. But with excessive demand assaulting the system on a big scale, the ill effects were difficult to escape.
Transmission grid is not stable. The distribution network is in a mess. Our legacy generating stations like Kanji was commissioned in '68. Most of the machines in Kanji have never had a turnaround maintenance in all those years. So the law of diminishing returns, so the stability of the system is already eroded.
And yet, rebuild they must. So a year ago, the president set up a special presidential task force on power, a multi-agency body with orders to oversee the day-to-day job of reforming the power sector. Specifically, the task force was to meticulously implement the 2005 Power Sector Reform Act, which had lain dormant for years and had slowed down the pace of change. Professor Bart Nnaji is the man charged by the President with superintending the work of the task force.
The President said to us that even if it is, say, 3,500 megawatts that we get, let us ensure that it's reliable. That is, you can always count on this 3,500 megawatts, and before we can now begin to build on it. And it's very, very important, and we set about doing just that to see that we increase capacity, but we also stabilize what we get.
Hold on, Sakraya. Aja, what is going to Maryland now?
Carry, come over to the control room.
3-2. What is your station low?
Please check the condition of the FPA. What are the attacks are still there?
The gas-powered Ebin plant just outside Lagos is West Africa's largest thermal electricity station and one of many the task force began overhauling.
The maintenance of this place has been very good, and from what you may have seen as we are going around, you will see that the station is over 25 years and is still able to bring out about over 80% of the establishment of the plant capacity.
Next, the task force focused its attention on servicing the hydro stations, such as the 600 megawatt Shiroro plant in Niger State.
Right now, we have 2 units running. The third unit, Unit 4, is undergoing annual maintenance. I started just this last Monday. The fourth one, Unit 2, had a breakdown that required a lot of funds. So it's on the capital budget. Good enough, it has been fully funded. And in fact, work has commenced.
Overhauling Ebin and Shiroro power stations, as well as several others, meant an immediate increase in generating capacity. Within a few months, power supply rose from below 3,000 megawatts in December 2010 to nearly 4,000 megawatts by April 2011. There was also a sharp drop in systems collapses, from 3 to 4 every 4 weeks to just 2 in the past 6 months.
So we had some, what you may call quick wins. A number of power plants that you could just do some adjustments, some modifications, and they would begin to increase capacity. And then monitor the work going on at the various power plants. That's how we were able to recover quite some capacities so far, and it's still ongoing.
Next, the task force resumed construction work on the NIPP power stations. In less than a year, the partially completed thermal station at Olorun Shogo began powering up to the national grid.
At the moment we have 3 machines in operation. It gives us about 370 megawatts.
And what difference would that make to electricity supply in Nigeria?
Well, hopefully it's adding to the national grid. The national grid at the moment is approximately 4,000 megawatts, so we're contributing almost 10%.
The Olorun Shogo station, which is a combined cycle power plant, is currently operating its gas turbines alone. But by September 2011, when the steam turbines are expected to kick in, the station should be sending considerably more electricity to the national grid.
With a total capacity of 750 megawatts, we are going to at least contribute to about 20% of total energy demand of 600 megawatts required of the nation.
An 8-hour drive away at the Aloji power plant near Aba in Abia State, the station is alive with activity. They're deep into pre-commissioning, the final stage before the actual commissioning of the plant. It's another one of the NIPP stations where construction has been fast-tracked by the task force.
This pre-commissioning period is a longer activity because you have to check every system, a subsystem,
ensure that all cables are terminated right, all the pipes are not leaking, all the joints are closed up, and it's safe for the operators, safe for the station to work without breaking down, and everything is good to go.
We have this project on two phases. The first phase is the gas turbine, which is what you are seeing now. That gas turbine has a capacity of 504 megawatts. Okay, we have 4 units, okay, of 126.1 megawatt each. The second phase, which is a combined cycle, the steam turbine area has a 578 megawatts through 2 units. So if this station comes in, we are looking at a lot of power going to the grid, and that obviously will affect the load requirement of the nation.
Not far away, an inspection team is carrying out final checks on the gas pipelines to ensure there is no leakage. In the past, generation has been severely affected by gas shortages at key thermal plants. To get around this major impediment, the government began constructing a new nationwide gas infrastructure. Today, it's nearing completion and is expected to improve supply of gas considerably.
We have an interconnection point for the gas delivery to the plant, because the gas is the engines are gas-fired. The client has a contract with the Nigerian gas company to deliver gas for running the engines, and they have a pipeline running all the way from the Imo River Shell facility, and it's come through our fence, and it's going to tie up with our own flange.
The issue of gas supply is going to, inadequate gas supply, should I say, is going to be a thing of, or is a thing of the past, and there is gas available for power generation in Nigeria. And indeed, the Nigerian Gas Master Plan doesn't just address gas to power, but also encourages gas to industry and gas for commercial use. So there's a whole industrial revolution benchmark on available gas supply.
With the completion of Olorunshogo, Aloji, Sapele, and a number of other NIPP power stations due in the next few months, around 4,000 additional megawatts is expected to be added to the national grid by the end of 2011.
Right now we have 225 megawatts from one of the plants. But soon they will begin to drop in and come. All the money is there, laid out. The power plants are either 80–90% completed in most of these plants, and they should surely come in.
Rehabilitating the existing plants and substations, as well as fast-tracking construction work at the NIPP sites, were just 2 of several short to medium-term strategies adopted by the task force. Smart power, ensuring that Nigerians get smart about how they consume electricity, has also become an important part of the work of the task force.
We decided to take energy efficiency, energy conservation more seriously, because we found out that it represents something that we can quickly implement and have some good impact.
By educating Nigerians on energy conservation and the use of efficient devices, the task force estimated that it could greatly reduce wasteful and inefficient use of electricity in the country, power that could be channeled back into the national grid. It's a message that's slowly getting through.
So what I do is that each time I'm leaving the office, I turn my systems off. So when I come in the morning, I start them all over again. And if I checked, I bought my units about some months ago, about 4 months ago, and up to now I still have some units in it, about 39 units. So you see, if you're able to manage these things properly like this, it will be a relief to NEPA, to PAC and itself.
And if we're able to deploy efficient lighting systems, like CFL, compact fluorescent light, or LEDs that are 15 watts and below, we will be saving as much as 75% of this more than 1,500 megawatts.
But even when fully implemented, along with the rehabilitation of the older power stations and the new NIPP plants, Nigeria would still fall short of its energy needs. This chart illustrates just how far Nigeria's electricity supply has fallen behind other nations of the world, including countries in Africa. Brazil, for example, generates 97% more power than Nigeria. The United States, with a population of just over double the number of Nigerians, generates over 1 million megawatts. South Africa generates 93% more electricity than Nigeria, and even Ghana, with a population of just under 24 million, generates almost as much power as Nigeria currently does. As the task force duly informed the President and the nation, a much more comprehensive action plan was needed that would not only dramatically increase the supply of electricity over the short to medium term, but set in motion a huge international private sector-driven effort that would unlock the investment potential in the power sector, as well as permanently resolve Nigeria's crippling power crunch.
Yeah, hello, this is Control Room.
There are two components, two main components to the roadmap. The first component is service delivery.
Yeah.
Because we say, okay, we want to reform the power sector. But in reforming the power sector, it will take time to realize some of the fruits of the reform. Meanwhile, you can't sit still. You need to do certain things to improve service in terms of generation, transmission, and distribution. That is one component, that is service improvement. The second component is the reform itself, which is to look holistically at how to transform the sector into a very robust performing sector, so that we can leapfrog in terms of a capacity input into the environment. And it requires structure, real structural changes in the system.